Hey everyone, it's Jennifer. This is part 1 of 2 on how to draw paper piece patterns in Photoshop. I hope you enjoy. First we're going to have a new file. I like 5 inches by 5 inches and I use 95 pixels wide. Then we're going to have a black background and add 0.02 inches. And that'll give us a black border, and then I'm going to do the same thing with a light gray border. This is my personal preference. I like to have seam allowance, so that's going to be 5.52, and it is going to be a square, so that'll give us a border like you see here. Then we're going to get ready to draw. I'm going to change to a 0.02 inch line and the line tool with black. And I'm just going to draw a heart today, just a real simple heart. We will make it in multiple pieces so that I can show you how to separate the pieces. Just going to play with it a little bit, and here what I did was I took away showing the background layer, and then I merged all the lines. You can see that on the layers tool on the right. If you don't have your layers tool open, that's under Windows, and then just choose layers and you'll see all of your layers there. And here I'm drawing the inside lines, and when you click the little eye on the layers, it will take away the layers that you don't want, and what I just did was merge those layers with the original heart shape layers. Now I'm just going to delete the layers I don't want over on the layers box, and then we'll go back and show the background again so that the heart shows up a little better. And notice that the background and the heart shape aren't merged yet. They're two separate layers so that I can manipulate the heart without doing anything to my background. It won't change anything on my background, the borders or anything like that. Right now I'm just going to play with what kind of lines I want to have in this heart, how scrappy do I want it to be, and I'm just going to tweak it until I get it just the way I want. And the lines I don't want to see, I'll go back and either make them invisible or I'll just delete them. Like right now they're just invisible. The little eye is not clicked on the layers, so you can't see them. And see, now I'm just going to delete those lines because I don't want those extras, and then now they're gone. So now I'm going to put some color in, and this is something you don't have to do. You can skip the color technique altogether. See, there I was on the wrong layer, so it filled up the background instead of the heart. I like to have colors on my patterns. It's a personal preference because I find it easier when I'm piecing to, especially when I have a lot of detail in a pattern, which this is not a real detailed pattern, but it's a good example of how I color my patterns. I like to have colors so that I have a point of reference, and I try to stick in the pastel shades when I'm coloring just because it uses less ink and makes it a little bit easier on my printer. So now I'm going to go back and first of all I'm going to save. You want to save as soon as you get to a point where you've got what you want. You can actually start saving from the very beginning, but I didn't save earlier, so we're going to save now. And I have a format that I save. I always save the name. Part of the name is the size of the block. So this is a 5-inch block. So it says 5-inch paper piece patchy heart, which is the name of this block. After we've saved, now I'm going to draw the lines that will separate this into 3 separate individual pattern units. I label my units with letters, so it'll be A, B, and C. What I'm doing is breaking up the pattern where I can't sew continuously on the paper. It's like a puzzle, and there's always a point where you can't sew one piece to the next piece without an extra seam. So this is that extra seam that will allow you to have more manipulation of the angles that you're working on. So that the top line separates the A and the B, and this is going to be the B to the C. And if you've been quilting for a little bit, or even just sewing in general, you're going to look at this and realize that you can't go from one of these shapes to the next without having another seam line. This is a very intuitive, and probably the most intuitive part about paper piecing is where to put your lines. I find it exceptionally hard to explain how to do this particular part just because I don't always know why I put it there. I can show you physically in person why I put it there, but I can't always explain it verbally why it's there. What I'm doing here is I decided that that was a little too blank, so I'm going to add a few more patches, and but that'll continue to be on the B piece, and that will make just a little bit more decorative pattern. Now that I have the units separated, I know where my border boundaries are. So now I'm going to go back into the A unit, which will be labeled with letters shortly. But I'm going to go back into the A unit and add the additional stitching lines. Every line is a stitching line, and each shape is a piece of fabric. So that one wasn't quite straight, so I'm going to do that again. And now I'm going to go into the B unit and do the same thing. And you can see how just by adding that one line, I now have two pieces of fabric, and that's where my stitching is going to be. And the B line is complete, and the C just needs this one line. Now that could have been two lines. You could have had one at the top and one at the bottom, but it's really not necessary. And the bigger piece of the fabric that I can use, that's the way I'm going to go if I can. I don't always see it the first time I draw it, so sometimes I end up going back and redrawing a pattern after I've made it, just to make it a little easier for the next time. What I'm doing now is just adding black lines along the borders of this pattern for seam allowance, and that'll be the end of what I do with this video, and I'll pick it up at the beginning of the next video with numbers and labels. So this is your outside seam allowance here on the left and the right as well. And that's going to be it for video number 1 of how to draw a paper piece pattern in Photoshop. And always save.